Hello, Ayşegül. Thank you for your time once again.
Hello, thanks for inviting. It's very nice to be here.
And this is my friend Sherry.
Hello.
Hello,
Nice
Sherif.
to meet you.
So we would like to start with our first question. So first of all, what motivated you and your co-author to explore communication habits of theater venues in Turkey, especially in Istanbul?
This report is actually the first step of a broader project by the Association for Communicating Social Good, or SOFI for short.
Yeah.
SOFI is a civil society organization that believes communication can create social good. We work with a rights-based approach by promoting equal access to communication, freedom of expression, and the responsible use of media. And because many of our funding members come from both the arts and communication fields, we were able to notice that independent and socially minded theater artists in Turkey often struggle with communication and visibility. Many have powerful artistic work, but find it hard to reach their audiences. There are, of course, several reasons for this. First of all, mainstream media no longer gives much space to arts and culture, and alternative media also usually prioritizes commercial institutions or popular artists, celebrities. When you add the financial difficulties most independent theaters face, the result is pretty clear. Valuable productions remain unseen, and some important venues even have to close down. And as a result, existing audiences lose access to diverse artistic work, and new audiences even can't emerge. And this means we're both losing part of our cultural diversity and the right to access culture. So seeing the situation, we felt we needed first to understand the problem deeply and from different perspectives, especially since there was no existing data on this topic. And that was our main motivation for conducting the research. And after completing it, we continued with capacity building programs to address the challenges we identified in the research.
Can you describe the ownership structures of the theaters? How would you assess the effects of ownership models on their communication and visibility strategies?
First, I should mention that our research focused solely on Istanbul. We included venues with 300 seats or fewer that regularly host performances and not fully funded by the state. We focused on this group because in Istanbul especially, large commercial theaters and publicly funded ones like city or state theaters, they dominate the scene. Hence, smaller independent venues often struggle to reach audiences. And most of these independent theaters are run directly by theater groups themselves. Even among a few operator-managed venues, most managers also come from the theater world rather than being outside investors. And it's also keep one other thing in mind. In Turkey, conservatories offer almost no courses on management, communication, or marketing. So artists who are trained to create theater often have to handle everything else as well, like communication, promotion, audience outreach. Most of them don't have the professional background or trainings to manage these areas effectively, and they also lack the budget to hire professionals. And as a result, they work without realistic or structured communication strategies, and unfortunately they're relying mostly on trial and error.
And what challenges does the lack of full-time staff or having only one full-time employee in most independent theaters create for building institutional memory and ensuring long-term sustainability? Does this affect their communication habits?
Yes, it does. In most independent theaters, as I said, areas like management, communication, technical work, and production are handled by freelancers or volunteers. This means there are very few people, or sometimes only even one person, responsible for almost everything. And because of this, it is extremely hard to build institutional memory and long-term sustainability, because knowledge and experience don't get passed on, and nothing really becomes permanent. And another reason behind this fragility, by the way, is the lack of qualified staff and financial resources, because many theaters simply can't afford to hire professionals. And even when they can, it is difficult to find experts who truly understand how theater works. They sometimes hire agencies, for example, but the agencies don't really understand the field, and it usually doesn't work very well. So in the end, once again, they prefer to handle things themselves. And as a result, most independent theaters don't have proper communication strategy. Even when they say they do, it's mostly intuitive. It's not based on data or planning. You can, for example, see it in how they describe their target audiences, or how they rely on personal relationships for media, and how they hardly ever use data analysis. All these factors make theaters more vulnerable, especially in times of crisis. It becomes pretty difficult to maintain consistent communication with audiences or to plan for the long term. So the lack of full-time staff is not only a matter of numbers, but it's a structural issue, and it limits learning, planning, and all other communication capacities, which are basically the things that sustain an organization over time.
As young people increasingly become content creators rather than just consumers, how should theaters venues adapt their social media strategies to engage them better?
Yes, young people today aren't just audiences anymore, they're also content creators. That's why the most effective approach for theaters is dialogic communication, which is basically a two-way conversation. Because people don't just watch anymore, they take part, and especially young audiences don't want one-way messages. They want to feel included. They want to be a part of a community and to see what happens behind the scenes. So to engage them, theaters need to be more transparent and create tactics that go beyond the performance itself. According to the dialogic approach, the dialogic communication approach, social media can be seen as the digital extension of the stage. So it's like another space where the story continues, because both worlds share similar dynamics. They're immediate, they're emotional, and they're built on connection. Many formats like live streams or short TikTok videos, YouTube content, or behind the scenes moments, these formats can help turn a play into something more than just a show, to make it a shared journey between the artists and the audience, especially the young ones.
And which types of communication crisis does the report identify as most common? For long-term reputation management, what is the single most important investment theaters should prioritize?
What we saw in the research is most independent theaters say they haven't faced a serious communication crisis so far. Around 3/4 of them told us they've never experienced one. There are a few reasons for that. First of all, these venues are usually small and they work with loyal audiences. And also, because theater in general doesn't get much media attention, even negative situations may stay limited and don't grow into large-scale crisis. But this, of course, doesn't mean that they're prepared. In fact, most of them run their communication without a professional strategy and more by intuition, as I said. That makes them very fragile when something unexpected happens. Without a clear plan or a crisis management experience, even a small problem can quickly grow and damage the reputation. So there isn't one most common kind because the types of crises we saw were quite diverse. They include social media attacks, accounts being hacked, posters being torn down, cancelled venue allocations, or even being excluded from festivals. And the way the theaters handle these situations is usually reactive and improvised because they don't have standard procedures or professional support. So they respond case by case, maybe by replying personally on social media or by staying silent or by simply opening a new account after one gets hacked. So what this really shows is how vulnerable the sector is. For long-term reputation management, we think the most important investment would be to have a simple but strategic communication plan, one that fits the scale of each theater. Because even with limited resources, having clear goals and a basic plan can make a huge difference. Thinking about everything, including crisis management, as part of a consistent strategy, reviewing it when needed, and most importantly, planning ahead can help to stay resilient in the long run.
Also, how can theaters maintain flexibility when digital ticketing platforms change their advertising policies or algorithms? What methods should be used to measure the direct effect of advertising on ticket sales?
To stay flexible, when platforms change their algorithms or ad policies, theaters need to track things constantly and react fast. It's important to follow ticket sales closely and see when demand goes up or down. This would help them adjust their strategies daily or weekly if needed. For theaters with small budgets, this is the key. It shows when and how much to spend on ads and how to reach full audiences in the most efficient way. And by the way, both ticketing platforms and social media have built-in analytics tools. Learning how to use them and sometimes also using AI-based tools can make a big difference because in the end, it's not just about running ads, it's about reading the data, understanding what works and changing your plan accordingly.
And the report highlights the platform's restrictions on access to audience data prevent theaters from building their own audience networks. What's the greatest harm that not having audience data causes to a theater's long-term planning?
First of all, most independent theaters don't sell their tickets through their own systems, but through private platforms. These platforms make it easier. they reduce the costs and they take care of the technical side. So at first, it looks like a practical solution, but over time, it brings serious risks. The biggest one is that, as you said, theaters no longer have access to their audience data because ticketing platforms keep all the information, like contact details, demographics, preferences for themselves. And as a result, theaters lose direct communication with their audiences. They can't send newsletters, for example, or even contact the ticket holders when a show is cancelled or postponed. In short, they no longer know their audience. This weakens the connection with the audience and makes long-term planning almost impossible. But another problem is that so much data is collected by only a few big companies. This creates dependency and the risk of monopoly. Many theaters have stopped running their own websites or sending newsletters, and they rely almost completely on social media and mainly Instagram. This makes them dependent on algorithms, ad policies, and budgets that they can't control. Sometimes they even don't have. And this is not just about communication. When the big data is interpreted through marketing logic, it also accelerates the commercialization of theater. Because AI-based data analysis can shape new artistic trends by saying, this is what audience want. And this pushes artists to focus on what will sell. And over time, this limits creative freedom and narrows the space for independent artistic expression. The greatest harm is that the theaters lose their ability to build their own audience networks. They can't get to know their communities, communicate with them directly, or sustain those relationships. But it's, as I said, not only a communication problem, it's also a threat to artistic and institutional independence. What I want to say is that not having access to audience data makes theaters both economically and creatively dependent. And the way to change this is, according to me, it's to take small but meaningful steps in order to regain control over their data, like rebuilding websites, setting up newsletter systems, and using simple digital tools that would allow them to communicate directly.
The report notes that concerns about Turkey's personal data protection law explain the low use of e-newsletters. How has this regulation changed how independent theaters build and sustain relationships with their audiences?
Well, it's hard to say that the personal data protection law alone is the main obstacle, because the shift from direct communication to digital third-party communication made this change happen faster. Ticketing platforms now handle most of the contact with audiences, and social media offers an easy way to reach many people. So many theaters started to think that newsletters or websites are no longer necessary. When the legal requirements of the data protection law were added on top of that, most theaters chose quicker and easier options instead. And as a result, as I've been repeating, direct contact with audiences has been replaced by platforms and algorithms. And that makes it harder for theaters to build and maintain their own audience communities.
For the last question, what do you think are the key factors that have allowed the theater venues established between 2010 2000 and 2010 to survive to this day? What structural or strategic elements might set them apart from others?
The ones that have managed to survive until today all share one strength. They've built a loyal audience community. Even though their artistic styles are quite different, many of them are collective structures, which gives them extra resilience against economic ups and downs. And those that aren't collective still tend to have a strong circle of supporters around them. And another factor is that some of these venues also work as training spaces. Through workshops and classes, they create direct and lasting connections with audiences, and sometimes even turning students into long-term followers.
Thank you so much, Ayşegül, for all the insights. It's a really important research, actually, for the theaters in Istanbul.
Thank you for inviting. As a last words, I would like to add, with this research, we actually wanted to show not only how big the challenges are, but that the potential to overcome them also exists in the sector itself. And when this potential can meet the right support mechanisms, it can enrich not only independent theaters, but also the cultural life of the whole city. And going back to where I started, Sophie believes in the power of communication to create social good, and this study is a reflection of that. And we really want to continue working on this field, reaching out also to other art forms and other cities as well. And we want to keep exploring how much can change when art and communication come together. And finally, thanks again very much for inviting us, because just like independent theaters, rights-based organizations like ours also struggle to be visible. This really helps us to share our work with more people.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.